Miami, Florida, US and Ukraine officials just held 4 hours of secretive talks on Trump's peace plan, while Russian missiles kept falling on the Ukrainian cities. Donald Trump says there's a good chance this deal could end the war. But critics warn it could also reward Putin and force Ukraine to give up land. In the next 3 minutes, we will break down what happened in Florida, what's really inside Trump's 28-point plan, what Zelensky is being asked to accept, and how Putin is reacting. On Sunday, senior US and Ukraine officials met for about 4 hours at a hotel near Miami to work on the possible end game to the war with Russia. Secretary of the State Marco Rubio called the talk productive but admitted there's a lot of work to do. Trump, speaking afterwards, said there's a good chance a deal can be reached, but he refused to set a new deadline after earlier hinting he wanted an agreement by Thanksgiving. At the table in Florida were Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff, Trump's son in law Jared Kushner, and the Ukrainian National Security Chief Rustem Umerov. Behind the scenes, the US representatives have always been talking directly with the Russian officials, including a controversial meeting in Miami with Kremlin linked financier to sketch out a 28 piece proposal. Next, Vichov is expected to fly to Moscow to brief Putin on the latest talks. Even as Russia continues to launch waves of drones, missiles, and guided bombs at the Ukrainian city and infrastructure. So, what is actually in Trump's plan? According to reports, the 28-point proposal would have Ukraine cede some territories now controlled by Russia, lock in pause on the NATO expansion, and amount to do a de facto recognition of Russia's grip on Crimea and other occupied areas, at least for the foreseeable future. Supporters say this is only realistic way to stop the war and save Ukrainian lives. Critics in Kyiv and Europe say it looks uncomfortable close to Moscow's wish list, demanding big concession from Ukraine while Russia is still attacking and still setting on the stolen land. President Zelensky now faces what some analysts calls a hideous choice. Accept a deal that could freeze the front lines and leave millions of Ukrainians under Russian control, or reject it and risk losing Western military support that his army depends on. Trump's team has hinted that future US aid could be tied to Ukraine's willingness to engage with the plan. Even as the Russian forces fire thousands of drones, bombs, and missiles every week, Zelensky says he will only back on a framework that truly protects the Ukraine's sovereignty, independence, and long term security. Meanwhile, Putin is watching all this closely. Russian state media has highlighted Trump's willingness to talk about the land concession and to limit NATO's growth. Exactly the king of big strategic prize the Kremlin has wanted since before it invaded in 2022. So, what happens next? In the coming days, Trump's envoy will go to Moscow, and US and Ukraine teams will keep working on the details. But officials on all sides admit there are huge gaps between what Russia wants, what Ukraine can accept, and what the US is willing to guarantee. If this plan collapses, the war grinds on, with Ukrainian fighting under the growing pressure and Russia beating that the West will eventually get tired. If a deal is reached, it could redraw the map of Europe and define Trump's foreign policy legacy, either as the president who ended the war or the one who forced a small democracy to live next to a stronger, emboldened Russia. If you want more fast, no nonsense explainers on hard politics like this, hit subscribe and tell me in the comments, should Ukraine trade land for peace or hold the line no matter how long it takes?